The harsh sun beat down on the parade ground, baking the dust into a fine powder that rose with every synchronized bootfall. A young woman stood ramrod straight, her gaze fixed on the horizon, but the whispers around her were a storm. "Look at her," one recruit snickered, loud enough to carry on the wind. "She thinks she belongs here." Another scoffed, a cruel laugh escaping his lips. "What's that on her back? Some kind of joke?" The murmurs grew, a tide of disrespect, as every eye seemed to bore into her, dissecting her quiet strength, yet she never flinched. The drill sergeant's voice cut through the air like a knife, but the true silence, the one that truly mattered, was about to descend, freezing not just the mockery, but the very breath of a hardened commander. The air in the training yard was thick with the scent of sweat, pine needles, and the unspoken tension of 1,000 new beginnings. Amelia stood among the newest recruits, a solitary figure amidst the eager, boisterous crowd. Her uniform, still stiff and new, clung to her frame, but it was the subtle curve of muscle beneath the fabric that hinted at a deeper strength. Today, however, that strength was being tested not by physical exertion, but by the biting words of her peers. "Look at her, trying to be tough," a voice sneered from the ranks behind her. Mark, a broad-shouldered young man with an arrogant glint in his eyes, gestured crudely toward her back. "What's that supposed to be? Some kind of target practice?" His companions snickered, their laughter a dissonant chorus in the otherwise disciplined setting. Amelia felt the heat of their stares, the weight of their judgment, but she remained motionless, her focus unwavering. The sun beat down, a relentless hammer on her helmet, yet her resolve was a shield against the rising tide of disrespect. Amelia's journey to this boot camp was not paved with easy choices. She had carried the weight of a silent promise for years, a vow whispered in the hushed stillness of a military hospital. Her older brother Daniel had been a Marine, a man whose laughter was as infectious as his courage was unyielding. He had seen the world through the lens of duty and honor, a vision he passionately shared with his younger sister. Amelia, then a bright-eyed teenager, had listened, captivated by his stories of camaraderie and purpose. Then the world had fractured. A sudden, devastating ambush in a distant land had stolen Daniel's vibrant spirit, leaving behind only echoes and a folded flag. Amelia remembered the sterile white walls of the hospital, the hushed voices of doctors, the profound silence that had fallen over her family. In the days that followed, a quiet determination had taken root within her. She would honor Daniel's sacrifice, not with tears alone, but with action. She would walk the path he had chosen, not to replace him, but to carry his torch. This resolve had been etched into her very being, a silent testament to a love that transcended loss. She had spent years honing her body and mind, pushing past limits others thought impossible. Running until her lungs burned, training until her muscles screamed, she had forged herself into a formidable woman. Yet, the memory of Daniel was not a burden, but a driving force. His last letter, creased and worn, still rested in her pocket, a constant reminder of the why behind her grueling pursuit. It spoke of duty, of brotherhood, and of a strange, poignant beauty in facing hardship for a greater cause. Back on the parade ground, the jeers continued, growing bolder as the recruits interpreted Amelia's silence as weakness. "Maybe she's just scared," another voice chimed in, dripping with false sympathy. "Too fragile for this, aren't you, little girl?" The drill sergeant, a gruff man named Sergeant Miller, paced before them, his gaze sharp, but he seemed to let the taunts continue, a silent test of the recruit's mental fortitude. He watched Amelia, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, observing her unyielding posture, her unwavering gaze. He knew better than anyone that true strength often wore a quiet cloak. The air grew heavy with the weight of the injustice. Others in the ranks shifted uncomfortably, their gazes darting between Amelia and her tormentors. Some looked away, unwilling to get involved, their silence a complicity that amplified the sting of the mockery. One young woman, Private Chen, offered a fleeting, sympathetic glance, a small gesture of unspoken support, but even her kindness was drowned out by the escalating disrespect. Amelia, however, remained a statue of resolve. She had faced far greater challenges than the petty cruelty of inexperienced recruits. She remembered the nights spent alone, wrestling with grief, pushing through moments of doubt. This she knew was simply another test. Honor demands more than noise, Daniel had once written, a simple phrase that resonated deeply within her now. The moment came during the routine inspection. Commander Hayes, a legend in the training facility, a man whose presence commanded immediate respect, strode onto the parade ground. His uniform was impeccable, his bearing formidable, and his gaze missed nothing. A hush fell over the recruits, their earlier taunts instantly forgotten in the face of true authority. He moved down the line, his eyes scrutinizing every detail, every crease, every bootlace. The air crackled with anticipation, a silent judgment hanging over them all. As Commander Hayes reached Amelia, he paused. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, swept over her, taking in her immaculate uniform, her steadfast posture. He then moved behind her, a routine check of the back of her uniform. The recruits held their breath, some still harboring a hint of their earlier disdain, others just hoping to escape his notice. Then Commander Hayes froze. His broad shoulders stiffened. The subtle movement was almost imperceptible, yet it sent a ripple of unease through the ranks. His hand, which had been about to smooth a non-existent wrinkle, stopped midair. His gaze was no longer scrutinizing, but locked, fixed on something on Amelia's back. The silence that descended was absolute, deeper and more profound than any drill sergeant could command. It was a silence born of shock, of dawning realization, of something utterly unexpected. Amelia felt the shift in the air, the sudden, heavy stillness behind her, but she did not flinch. She had lived with this secret, this deeply personal mark, for years. It was not a show, not a statement to be broadcast, but a silent testament to a love that ran deeper than words. Commander Hayes slowly, almost reverently, reached out. His fingers, calloused from years of service, gently traced the outline of the intricate tattoo that covered Amelia's entire back. It was not a childish drawing, nor a rebellious symbol. It was a masterpiece of honor, a sprawling, exquisitely detailed depiction of the Medal of Honor, its ribbon flowing down her spine, flanked by the names of fallen soldiers, carefully etched, each letter a whisper of memory. And at its heart, larger and more prominent than any other, was the name, Daniel. The commander's voice, when it finally broke the silence, was a low, gravelly whisper, thick with emotion. This is, he couldn't finish the sentence. The weight of the imagery, the names, the singular, powerful meaning of Daniel's name at the core was overwhelming. His eyes, usually so stern, now glimmered with unshed tears. Sergeant Miller, standing a few paces away, had also seen it. His jaw, usually set in a hard line, had slackened. The recruits, straining to see, began to murmur, but this time the murmurs were different. They were whispers of awe, of understanding, of dawning shame. Private Chen, eyes wide with revelation, placed a hand over her mouth. Mark, the instigator of the earlier mockery, stood pale, his earlier bravado completely evaporated, replaced by a profound, sickening realization of his error. Private Amelia Hayes, Commander Hayes finally managed, his voice now clearer, though still laced with a deep reverence. You carry their stories. You carry the sacrifice. He stepped back, a new respect in his eyes, a profound understanding of the quiet strength that had allowed her to endure the insults with such stoic grace. True strength, he said, his voice carrying across the silent parade ground, is not always loud. Sometimes it is etched in silence, carried with honor. He turned to face the stunned recruits. His gaze, now piercing, swept over their humbled faces. You mocked her, he stated, his voice devoid of anger, but heavy with disappointment. You judged her without seeing. This woman, he gestured to Amelia, who remained perfectly still, carries the weight of heroes. She embodies the very spirit of what we strive to be. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. Remember this moment. Honor is not given lightly. It is earned through sacrifice and recognized through respect. A profound silence settled over the parade ground, broken only by the distant caw of a bird. One by one, the recruits, starting with a Private Chen, then slowly, hesitantly, Mark and the others, began to shift. It began with a subtle straightening of shoulders, then a quiet, unified movement. Without a single command, without a single word, they stood at attention, a silent, powerful salute to Amelia. Their faces, once filled with mockery, now bore expressions of deep shame and a burgeoning profound respect. Amelia felt a warmth spread through her, not of triumph but of quiet validation. She had never sought praise, only to honor her brother's memory. Daniel's words, "Some battles are fought in silence, but their victories echo forever," resonated within her now. She knew he would have been proud, not of her tattoo, but of the unyielding spirit it represented. The parade ground remained silent, a tableau of respect and reflection. Commander Hayes, with a final knowing nod to Amelia, then turned and walked away, his stride still powerful but carrying a new profound sense of purpose. The recruits stood frozen in their silent salute, not because they were ordered to, but because they understood. They understood the true meaning of honor, etched not just on a back, but in the heart of a silent hero. This story reminds us that true strength often resides in quiet dignity, in the battles fought unseen, and the sacrifices made without fanfare. It teaches us that judgment can blind us to the profound courage that walks among us, and that respect, when truly earned, can silence even the loudest mockery. Where are you watching from? Share your thoughts on Amelia's story in the comments below. And if you believe in honoring silent heroes, subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us of the incredible power of the human spirit.